and gentlemen, what the world has been waiting for, what the world needs now, the one, the only, amazing, original, Johnny Blaze. Often imitated, but never duplicated. There's Johnny.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to welcome you all to the original Johnny Blaze Show. It's great to be here as I blaze right in with my karate kick. Let's have a blazing hot fun time. Well, folks, it looks like Los Angeles will finally open up later this month. I'm now selling a big bag of vintage face masks, only slightly used. Any takers out there? Name your price, folks. Last year I was dating a single mom with a teenage daughter, and she kept pressuring me to marry her. She would ask, "What are you waiting for?" "Well, I'm waiting for your daughter to turn 18, just to keep my options open." If you think you are smarter than the previous generation 50 years ago, a co-owner's manual showed you how to adjust the valves. Today, it warns you not to drink the battery fluid. I want to lose weight, but I don't want to get caught up in one of those eat right and exercise scams. I heard a married man ask his wife a question, and he asked her, "What would you do if I won the lottery?" She replied, "I would divorce you and take half of your winnings." And he said, "Good. I just won a $5 scratcher. Here's 10 quarters. You can go now." I tried to impress this one woman by taking her to a fancy restaurant and ordering the most expensive bottle of wine on the menu. Halfway through the meal, she says, "I love you." I asked her, "Is that you talking or the wine?" She said, "It's me talking to the wine." A man tried to remarry his ex-wife, but she soon realized he was only after what was left of his money. I just recently ended a long-term relationship. It's okay, though it wasn't mine. We have a blazing hot fun show with a very special guest. He's a multi-talented musician, and comedian. So please give a big warm welcome to the one and only Phil Johnson. Hi, Phil. Hey, Phil Johnson. Hey, welcome to the original Johnny Blaze Show. How you doing, my friend?
I'm good. We made it.
Yes, we did. We got past all the glitches. If first you don't succeed, try again, right?
Exactly. Yep.
Right. Well, you look happy, you look like you're smiling, you're in a good mood, and that's great. Okay, thanks for bearing with me, my friend. That's great.
Oh, yeah, no worries.
You know, everybody has a very unique and special story in their life, that's for sure. Each person has their own way of doing things. Please tell me. I want to hear, I'm all ears, I want to hear about your story, the Phil Johnson story. How did you get started in entertainment, and where are you from? Tell me the whole thing, the whole story there.
Sure, yeah. So San Jose, California, that's home base for me. And the story begins with I was 7, 8 years old, I guess, and my mom said, "Do you want to take music lessons?" And I said, "I don't know, maybe." And she said, "Girls like musicians." And I was like, "Cool, sign me up." And she said, "What instrument do you want to play?" And I said, I don't know. And she said, "Well, look, if you play the flute, you'll always be the only boy in the section." And I said, "Great, sign me up for the flute then." And I was always, all the way through college, I was the only guy in the flute section. Never dated another flautist, strangely, but I did meet my best friend Dave in the clarinet section next to me. So that was nice. But yeah, so the flute was my first instrument. And then I picked up the guitar. I picked up the piano when I was 12 or 13, picked up the guitar when I was 16. That became my voice, was the guitar. And started my first band just after high school. And played with various incarnations of my band Roadside Attraction over the years. And about 16 years ago, I wrote a couple of goofy songs that started to click with people. And I got invited to do a comedy music show at a place in San Francisco called the Hyena Theater that doesn't exist anymore. And the MC of that show was a lady named Lynn Ruth Miller, who at the time was 72, I think. And she was starting her own comedy career at the age of 72. And she said, "Look, I need a guitar player in my act to do this bit with me. You're gonna play the Anarchy in the UK by the Sex Pistols while I throw lingerie at the audience." And I said, "Great, I'm in. Let's do it." And so she started taking me around to a lot of the local comedy places here in the Bay Area, and we would do her bit, and then she would say, hey, he's got material too, put him up. And so they started going, yeah, go ahead up. Can you do 7 minutes? And I was like, well, I did 4 hours with my band last weekend. And then you realize how ungodly long 7 minutes is on a comedy stage. And but it just sort of snowballed into that. I found out that comedy would open up a bunch of new venues and new opportunities for me. And I lived on, 3 goofy comedy songs for about the first year and a half. And then started to develop some actual stand-up chops and things like that because I've always loved comedy. I just never thought I'd be doing it. And now, 16 years later, the comedy thing has become what I do. So it's been an interesting journey.
What is there about comedy that really appeals to you? What is there about it?
I like it's different. What appeals to me now about it is different than what appealed to me when I was a kid. As a kid, I listened to loads of stand-up comedy. I think, I could probably recite Robin Williams' Live at the Met album almost word for word, when I was 17 years old. And I followed all of the 80s comics and things like that. I loved all that kind of stuff just because it was fun. It was funny. That's all I knew. What I really like about it now is that it's still a subversive art form in a way that music isn't always. There's nothing you can do musically that scares people anymore. We've hit Marilyn Manson. There's nothing beyond that. He took Alice Cooper and did it a level higher. There's not much you can do to shock people in music anymore, but there are still things in comedy that you can do to shock people, whether that's shock them in a good way, shock them in a bad way, whatever it is, that you can still use comedy to kind of smack people across the face a little bit and wake them up to something a little bit different and interesting that's going on.
What's your specialty? So as far as you waking people up, do you have any special ability that in creative a way of doing it, to waking people up and shocking them? How are you able to do that?
For my stuff, I just in over the last few years, I would say the last 5 years, which encompassed my latest special called Burning Sensation, I started attacking subjects that people think I'm not supposed to talk about sometimes, whether that's race or religion or, things like that, where my opinion is not the nobody wants to hear my opinion on a lot of that stuff. But it was, how can I talk about that stuff? Because I have opinions and I have thoughts about all these kinds of things. I've grown up in a very multicultural community my entire life. So I have opinions about race and getting along with people and that kind of thing. I grew up Catholic and I'm not anymore. I got plenty of opinions about how that went, And so it was finding a way to tell people what I think about those things in a way that would surprise them and make them laugh and not infuriate them. And there was a period in there where a lot of the stuff was, people would be mad at the material, and it was just having to find a different way to present it to them so that they could laugh at it, which is then also kind of laughing at themselves a lot of the times. So it was just tackling subjects that, people that I would not be the first choice that people would go to for an opinion on those subjects.
Okay, so what you're doing is turn your scars into stars. You're trying to take something that is negative, because people generally don't like those type of things. They get angry, and you're trying to turn it and make it fun. That's what you're doing.
Yeah, certainly. And it's just like because there's with some comedy audiences, there's a reaction to the fact where a perfect example is I was playing a show one night and I set up the joke. I said, my girlfriend is Chinese, and if we had a baby, we would have a half Asian baby. And that's just a statement of fact. And a lady in the front row went, no. And I was like, what? She was like, no. And I'm like, no. That's just a statement of fact. It's all. I'm not saying anything bad. Obviously, I have a Chinese girlfriend. I like Asian people. They're okay by me, But she was just mad at the fact that I was even bringing up that topic. And so sometimes I have to get past that and go, just hang with me here. It's going to be okay by the time we get to the end, So I could talk about easier subjects, and I do. Some of the show is easier subjects, of course, but I like to tackle things that I feel strongly about that may not be expected to talk about. And I also like to talk about things that nobody else is talking about, whether that's a serious subject or if it's a goofy subject. I've done whole bits about bees. I have a bit that I'm working on in my new show that's all about pasta shapes. And just subjects that I don't hear other comics talking about that occur to me where I go, I could do something with that.
What do you prefer? Do you prefer doing these shocking, opinionated type of jokes, or do you prefer doing the more serious type of things? What do you prefer, and what do you think works best, or does it?
I think it has to be a mixture. I mean, even if you take somebody like George Carlin, who was sort of a king of opinionated shock material, but with conscious thought behind it, he would also do super goofy little silly bits to mix it up. I think if your whole show is about really serious subjects, even if it's a really, really funny show, I think if the whole show is about that, it becomes a little bit tedious, where people are like, okay, we came to relax and it's funny, but we're not relaxed, and so I think there's got to be a nice mix of those two ideas in there to really make it work, at least for me.
Have you ever had any shows that stand out? I mean, that, of course, you want to remember the good ones, but has there been some that are forgettable that you feel like, maybe the jokes didn't go over, or people are having a hard time keeping their attention, they're snoring, or they're bored, or, whatever? You ever had anything like that?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's, I always tell people that if I remember the show when I walk off stage, it was probably a bad show. If I walk off stage and I don't really remember what happened in the last hour, that was a good show because I wasn't up in my head about it, But yeah, I've had loads of bad gigs. I had a show at a theater. It was nice theater, packed it all out, and I started doing some religion material, and they were not on board with it, and I walked half the house. And the half that stayed were mad at me, but I managed to bring them back, and they loved me again by the end of the show if they hung in there with me. There's just nights where it doesn't click with people for whatever reason. I mean, everybody's got bomb stories, but the worst ones aren't occurring to me right now. There was one time where I got booked to play a soul food restaurant, and with black crowds either love me or hate me, and there seems to be no in between. And that crowd did not love me at all, and they booed me right off the stage. And I took my paycheck and went home anyway. So there's stuff like that. There was a weekend where I got called in as a guest headliner at a club because Eddie Griffin had canceled. And they said, hey, are you in town this weekend? We need a headliner. And I was like, sure, yeah, I can come down and do that. Wait a minute, did you tell people that Eddie Griffin is not going to be there? And they were like, yeah, kind of. And I was like, oh, no. I don't know if you know who Eddie Griffin is, but he and I are comedically very, very opposite people. He is a very black man comedian. And a very energetic, we're both energetic, but we have very different audiences, basically. And so his audience came in expecting to see him, and instead they got this long-haired white kid singing songs at him and stuff. So it was, I worked uphill all weekend, but I won him over every time.
Wow.
It was just hard work to convince them to like me and get into the material.
What is your most challenging time? For your show, and what's your favorite venue? Any favorite venues or challenging?
Oh, yeah, gosh, favorite venues. I really love the Comedy Underground in Seattle. That's a wonderful venue. And then there's a place in Royal Oak, Michigan, outside of Detroit, the Comedy Castle in Royal Oak, Michigan, is really, really fun too. That's a great room. But there's lots of great rooms. And then there's rooms that you just never want to see again. There's a bar in Idaho Falls, Idaho, that if I never go there again will be too soon.
Any of the places like the Comedy Store, the Laugh Factory in LA, have you ever been to those, or
Sure.
Improvisation?
Yep. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I've done the Improv here in San Jose. I've done the Comedy Store in Los Angeles. Those are great because it's hallowed halls. You walk in, they're like, oh, hey, this is Richard Pryor's dressing room, and you're like, great. How many children were started in this room? And yeah, so I love playing those places when I have the opportunity. Not being in LA makes it difficult to really work into that scene because I'm up in Northern California. But up here we have the San Jose Improv, which is wonderful. We have Cobb's and the Punchline in San Francisco, which are great. So yeah, there's a lot of good.
What is there about? Is there a favorite one, or you like them equally? And what is there about them that you really appeals in these comedy clubs?
You know, it's mostly it's the audience. And I mean, to me, it really doesn't matter what the room is like. I mean, it's nice to have a cool green room and snacks and drinks and a nice stage and great lighting. And there are places like Zanies in Rosemont, Illinois, or the Chicago Zanies as well. Those are great rooms, and they have fantastic audiences. I will show up at Zanies any night of the week if I am in Chicago to do a set, and it's always fantastic. Same thing with the Seattle Comedy Underground. The audiences are fantastic. The club is kind of a dump, but the audiences are really great. So it really doesn't matter that much what the venue is like. If the audiences are great, I'm a happy camper.
Any the most challenging out of the different. How many shows have you done in your career? The most challenging one that you can remember that really stands out?
Oh gosh.
You thought was
Yeah, I mean with thousands. I mean I've been performing in some context since 1994, I think, was when I first started performing with my band, so thousands of shows, and I don't keep count. Some comics keep count. They're like, oh, it's my 3,000th show. I'm like, I don't know. I have no idea. It's been a long time that I've been doing shows. And there are difficult ones. I can remember there was a show, Idaho Falls was in my head. There was that bar I was playing up there. It was a one-nighter kind of thing. And every time I played that place, I would blow my voice out because I had to yell over the crowd because the sound system wasn't that great. And I had done some joke about, I think I'd done some joke about like Nazi skinheads or something. And three guys get up and start showing me their swastika tattoos, and I was like, oh no, all right, I'm just gonna go talk to these people over here. And so there's stuff like that where you just kind of get yourself in trouble with somebody in the crowd. And then there's just weird gigs. Last night actually was my very first performance. I won't even call it a show. It was my very first performance back since last March. It was 455 days since I've been in front of a real audience, and I still haven't been in front of a real audience. This show I did last night was on top of a parking garage in Santa Cruz, California, for people in their car flashing their lights at me as laughs. And it was ridiculous, and I was just getting my feet wet again because I haven't done a live audience in so long, and I did like 15 minutes for them. And then, but tomorrow night I'm going back to the same city to play a really nice gig. I'm going to do a full headlining show, so that'll be the first real show back. But yeah, there's just like weird gigs where you show up and you're like, why did I say yes to this? What was I thinking?
So some shows can be more challenging than others. And,
oh sure, yeah.
You feel it's just sometimes it can be. Although it's real difficult, how do you deal with people like, let's say, hecklers, and how do you, as far as prepare for your show, and what as far as remembering your lines and you write your own material? I mean, there's so many things. You write your own material.
Sure.
How do you go about remembering your lines? Have you dealt with hecklers? I mean, there's so many things, of course.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, I don't get that many hecklers, strangely. The few that I do. I will either, if they seem good-natured, I'll play around with them a little bit. I'm not a big crowd work guy, but I will play around with them a little bit if the opportunity looks right. If they're belligerent, then I will either just talk over them and ignore them, which usually will shut them up pretty quick, or I will infantilize them and sort of go, okay, let's have our inside voice, kind of thing, and then that'll shut them down pretty quick. There's been very few nights where I had to really, really just shut somebody down because they were getting out of hand. More likely, the club will throw them out before I get to that point where I have to do that.
Oh, I see. It's never come to that. Okay, right.
Yeah, I've had people thrown out of my shows before, definitely. Yeah. And I mean, like even some clubs will have a a secret code phrase that the comics can use that means, hey, get rid of this person. I know there's one club, I think it's in Colorado, and if I say from the stage, hey, get that guy a cup of coffee on me, it means throw that guy out of the club. And right. So there are the sort of the industry trade secrets of things that we can do with hecklers, but I honestly don't get heckled all that much, and if I do, they're generally fairly good natured, unless it's a bachelorette party or a drunk lady. Those are usually the worst. But with the material, I'm actually in the middle right now of smashing a new show into my head, because the way this quarantine thing worked, I had just finished filming my last special right before everything locked down, and I spent the first part of quarantine just doing all the post-production and on the special to get it out, but also starting to write the next show. And by August or September of last year, I looked at what I had, and I had a brand new hour, which is the fastest I've ever written a new hour. And so I was doing that material on Zoom shows, online shows, things like that since then, and I was being lazy. I was using a script. I was using notes. And then these bookings came around. I was like, oh, I have to remember all this stuff now. So I have been every day, every morning, doing an hour, hour and a half of comedy just here in my studio, just working on putting this stuff into my brain. What I do is I start with a fully scripted show. This one's about 20, 25 pages, I think. And then I will take it down from there into a fairly detailed outline, and then I will take it down from there into a more general outline, and then eventually it becomes a set list that's about that big that I can throw on the stool while I'm on stage to keep track of where I am.
So you write your own material, it sounds like, and you're creative, and I guess you have your own technique then, I guess, for not only writing it, but I mean practicing and being able to get it into your head.
Yeah.
How do you go about doing that? I mean, it must not be easy, but I'm sure you have your own technique.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, I mean, as far as the writing, comics, we all write our own stuff for the most part. So there are some of the names that will buy jokes from people or have co-writers or things like that. But
right.
But most of us, we write our own stuff. And so the things that I write about are anything that I think I can expound on for 3 or 4 minutes. And the new show that I'm working on right now is the premise of the show is built around a trip to Italy that my girlfriend and I took just before the quarantine started. And it weaves and dodges into other stuff. There's stories from the trip, and then that story will sort of bleed into, okay, there's this other concept about generational conflict. And then we'll go back into the Italy stories, and then we'll go, oh, okay, there's this other story about music festivals. And then we'll do this, and it just sort of weaves in and out and keeps coming back with the Italy trip as sort of the central theme of the show, which it's a little bit different. I've never written a show like that before. It's almost more of a one-man show type of structure, but I'm very excited about it. And so it's anything that I think I can just sit and write. I will just sit and write a lot of garbage. So, I mean, if I come out of it with a 5-minute bit, I probably wrote 15 minutes of material on that subject.
So you write about your experience. You write about your experiences. That's what you do.
For sure. Yeah.
Exactly. Now, have you ever had a show where you thought you had everything, you practiced, you think that you feel you know it all, right? And all of a sudden you get a blank or something doesn't quite go right. Murphy's Law, if anything can go wrong, it can and will. Just like what happened with our test tonight, for example. That's
for sure.
Okay.
Oh yeah, I mean that stuff's always going to happen, and you just have to learn how to just pivot on stage. Even last night when I was just warming up with that little 15-minute set on top of a parking garage, I got to one point in a bit and I was like, can't remember the next line. Just go to the next line. Sometimes if it's a glaring enough omission, I will make a joke about it with the audience and let them know I don't remember what comes up next in this bit. We'll crack a joke about it, and it becomes sort of humanizing. It takes the performer down a notch a little bit, and they go, oh, that guy's just like me. He forgets stuff too, Right. But most of the time, I can just jump to the next joke, and if it's not a logical. If there's not a hole in the logic by doing that, then it works out just fine. There have been nights where, we're doing 3 shows on a Saturday, and I get into a bit, and I'm like, did I do this bit already at this show, or am I thinking of the last 2 shows? Because you just get so, 2-3 show night, you get really exhausted, and you can't remember what you already did. But for me, the show is generally very scripted. I come at it like a songwriter, as if here's a thing I've composed and I'm going to show it to you now. Whereas other comics, they will go up on stage and they'll just kind of start riffing and talking until something funny happens. And I would love to have that skill, but it's not the way that I write. And so I compose, I script, and then I rehearse it like crazy until it starts to sound natural again. Because a scripted show can sound like a scripted show if you don't learn how to talk it out and make it sound like natural conversation again. You know,
so you
basically, that's a big part
you have
of
a problem. You make light of it is what you do and go right on. That's what a good entertainer does. They act like nothing
Of course,
happened.
yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and if a bit's not working, you know, I'll abandon a bit halfway through and jump to something else if the crowd's really not into it. And then there'll be other times where I go, hey, we're gonna power through this, and you're gonna like it by the time we get done with it. Or it's something where I just go, if it's an unimportant gig, and I go, no, I need to work on this bit tonight, regardless of what the audience thinks of it. There's that kind of stuff that happens every once in a while, but those are on real low key gigs. That you
ever had any gigs where they really were loud and angry and booing? Did you have any of?
Not in comedy. Well, except for that one soul food restaurant that I did, they booed me, but
as you only.
They were done with me, and the producer of the show just kind of waved me off and gave me the cut sign, and I walked off. I said, all right, good night, guys, and I walked off, and he said, here's your paycheck, and I said, cool, don't ever book me here again. And
I don't blame you.
That's it. So I mean, it's nerve-wracking when that kind of stuff happens. That one wasn't so bad. I knew I wasn't right for the room anyway, but he insisted on booking me, and so I took the gig.
Okay.
But there was years ago, playing with my band, Roadside Attraction, we had gotten booked to be the middle act for Ronnie James Dio at a club. And Ronnie James Dio, big 80s metal act, and we're not a metal band. And so I was like, I told the booker, I said, I don't think that's the right gig for us. And he goes, look, it's already sold out. You don't have to promote it. There's going to be 1,000 people here, and it was one of our favorite clubs to play. We would play there anytime we could. And he goes, look, it's already sold out. You don't even have to do anything. And I was like, all right, we'll do it. We'll take the gig. And so we were middle. There was an opener, and we were the middle act, and then Ronnie James Dio. And so the opener band goes out, a band called Mystic Rage, who is a full-on metal band, good friends of mine, and the crowd hated them, booed them mercilessly, and just tore them to pieces. And they came off the stage looking shell-shocked. And I was like, oh, no, we're in deep trouble because we're not even a metal band. We shouldn't even be on this show. And so we start going out, and we're setting up our gear, and the crowd is like, woo! They're like, yeah. And I'm like, all right, this is weird. Maybe our reputation has preceded us, and they know who we are. Maybe, okay. Looking at my roadie, I'm like, this might be okay. And he's like, I think this is going to be cool. And then we get all set up, and my roadie goes, please welcome Roadside Attraction. And my tall blonde singer walked out on stage, and the crowd went, that's not Dio, boo. And they just booed us and booed us and booed us and booed us. We were on stage for about 15 minutes, and the booker called up to the sound booth, and he said, look, you guys can do one more song and then just get off. And at first we were like, we're getting cut off. And they were like, oh, no, he was doing us a favor. And so we huddled up real quick on stage, and the rest of the band said, let's do something heavy. Let's do like our heaviest song. Let's see if we can get them with that. And I said, no, you know what? These guys hate us anyway. Let's just do our regular closer, and we're done. Whatever happens, happens. And so our regular closer at the time was a song called Love Makes You Stupid. That was sort of like a Red Hot Chili Peppers kind of funk rock type of thing. And so we jumped into Love Makes You Stupid, and the crowd went crazy for it. They loved it. My mom was in the back of the club, and she's like, there was this huge dude booing you the entire time. You played your closer, and he's dancing, the whole thing. So we won the crowd over with the last song, and we said, good night, and we left. And so we split. We left the stage, and not only did Ronnie James Dio not go on early, he went on an hour and a half late. So that crowd sat there for almost 2 hours with no music in their ears because they booed us off the stage, and they were a terrible crowd. And we won them over in the end, and had we kept playing, we probably could have done okay. The girls loved us, the guys hated us, which I was perfectly okay with. And but I had to explain that show to the bookers around town for months after that. Hey, heard you got booed off the Dio show. And I'm like, yeah, here's what happened. And what it actually was is the crowd thought we were Dio's backing band because the radio station had been announcing Dio's going to be on at 10. We were on at 10. Dio was on at 11. And so the crowd, when we came out, they thought we were Dio's backing band because who the hell knows what they look like. So that's why they were excited at first. And then when it wasn't Dio, super disappointed. They're just one of those hardcore crowds, like trying to play for a Metallica crowd or somebody like that. They're only there to see their band, and that's it, you know. So the fact that we won them over with one song, I was perfectly happy with. But it is surreal being booed by a room of 1,000 people.
That's, you know what? That's a very entertaining, interesting story. Thanks for sharing that with me.
Sure.
Yeah, very much. Oh yeah, Phil. Because they thought it was some other band. They were angry, disappointed, and it turned out you still won them over, even though they were trying to get you off the stage. You still turned them over. You still turned them around and excited them, and they applauded, and that's. I love it. All's well that ends well.
Yep, exactly. I bring a shovel on stage to dig myself out, man.
By the way, how did you? Now you call it Roadside Attraction. So how did you come up with the name, and how did you create Roadside Attraction? Tell me all about that. And
okay.
So like an attraction by the roadside. It sounds like
Yeah, it was funny because I actually hold a trademark on the name for my band too, and the trademark office didn't want to give us the trademark at first because they thought it was too common a term. Like you can't trademark big boxes, you know. And so my lawyer called me at one point and he was like, "Do you actually play shows by the side of the road?" And I was like, "No, why?" He was like, "Okay, they just need to know that." And I was like, "Whatever." But we had a bunch of different names early on. I think we were called Confused for a while. We were called Brimstone for a couple of weeks. And we went through a bunch. And so what we then eventually did is we just brainstormed a huge list of names. And then we showed it to all our friends and said, which one do you like best? And Roadside Attraction was the one that got the most votes. And so we went with that. But the band was started. I was going to junior college. And my girlfriend at the time was also dating somebody else. We were in a weird portion of our relationship. And she was dating a guy who was a bass player while she was dating me. And we all knew that was the situation. So she introduced us. And she goes, "I think you guys would be good in a band together." And it was a guy named Brandon May. And Brandon and I sat down. And I said, "What kind of band are we?" And he goes, "What do you mean?" I said, "Well, are we like this kind of band?" And I played like a Metallica Slayer heavy riff. And I said, "Or are we this kind of band?" And played like a Motley Crue riff. And he goes, "The second one." And I was like, all right. And that's kind of how we started. We sound nothing like that now. But that's kind of how we started. Brandon left the band years and years ago. I'm the only original member left. We cycled through a zillion different members over the years. But that was kind of how we started. We just sat down and went, I guess we'll be that kind of band. And then we just started writing songs in that vein and letting it move along from there. But yeah, it was, it was a mutual girlfriend. At one point, that girl had dated everybody in the band, and we were just going to call the band Carol's Boyfriends. And she eventually did marry another bass player that was in the band, and they got divorced later on. But yeah, so she did end up with one of the band members. But yeah, that was it. We just started playing and gigging. Our very first show was like a headline gig at a club that we accidentally booked. And we were like, we're headlining a Friday night? What? How did that happen? He's like, I don't know. Turned out the club would book basically anybody that called them and could sell enough tickets. And we were able to sell enough tickets to do it. So, yeah, it's just weird stuff like that. But, yeah, it just kept moving from there. I've cycled through dozens of band members. I have a really great band now that I don't get to play with because I'm busy doing comedy most of the time. And so I still release everything under the name Phil Johnson and Roadside Attraction so that I can maintain my trademark and keep the band name out there. Because if I stop using it, I lose it.
You do this all yourself? You used to have band members. You don't have band members now?
I do have band members now for live performances. So the last time we played as a band was several years ago, probably 6, 7 years ago at this point, where I had the band come on for the end of my last comedy special that was called Pretty from the Back. And so we had the band on to do a couple songs at the end of the show. And so for live stuff, I do have them And for if I need a trumpet part recorded, I can go to my trumpet player John and have him do that. Or if I need a trombone part, things like that. But if it's drums, bass, guitar, and keyboards, I can do all that myself. And so I do all the recording myself and that kind of stuff, and then farm it out if I need anything else extra.
Well, I see. You're multi-talented then. I guess you do what you do, and I guess if you need anything else, you have other band members.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I have a room full of instruments here, so I can hack my way through most of them.
What's your favorite instrument to play? Did you teach yourself, or did you have to take training, or what?
Oh yeah, loads of training. The guitar is my voice. The guitar is really my voice. That's my favorite one. Like I said, flute, piano. I'm a terrible drummer, but I can play well enough, and where editing and special effects make it sound like I know what I'm doing. I sing. I've got a mandolin on the wall. I've got banjo and bass over there. I'm a pretty decent bass player. And so I had years and years of classical training on the flute and on the piano. I took intensive weekend courses through GIT in Los Angeles when they were doing boot camp classes up here, and I have a degree in jazz guitar from San Jose State University, and I teach music as well. So I've been very deeply steeped in music my entire life. And and then the comedy thing was just a new layer on top.
And you took vocal training also? You teach yourself?
No, I did teach myself how to sing, and mostly that was I didn't want to be a singer. All I wanted to be was a guitar player in a rock band. That was the plan. And I couldn't find a singer to work with at the time. I had been through a few singers, and everybody listened to my demos, and they're like, "Why don't you just do it?" And I'm like, "I don't want to be a singer." And they're like, "Just do it. It's going to be easier." And so I would go to my studio for 6 hours every day and sing and play and sing and write and sing and play and sing. And that's how I taught myself how to sing. And I mean, now listening back to my first album as a vocalist, there's some parts that I cringe at, but it was pretty darn good for being a self-taught singer. And some of my vocal instructor friends still cringe at the way I sing, not for pitch, but just technique and things like that. But it's developed over the years, because now I've been a singer since 2004, I guess. So I've been doing it a long time now. Man, time flies. And just singing at every gig and learning how to control my voice in the studio and things like that. And you just I've just adapted to it. I've never had any straight vocal training. No.
You taught yourself. So that's very good. It's excellent. Well, you're well-rounded, very versatile, very talented.
Good try.
What's your favorite music and favorite bands or singers? Anybody? Do you have any favorites?
Oh yeah, I listen to so much music. I grew up on 50s and 60s rock through my parents. That's what was always on the radio, and so I was, steeped in the Beatles and Beach Boys and all that kind of stuff real early on. And then I was studying classical music for the most part when I was a kid, so I had a lot of that classical music training all the way through college, playing in operas and ballets and things like that. I went through my metalhead years as a teenager, and that's where this comes from. And so, yeah, I mean, I grew up listening to Metallica and Slayer and Anthrax and all the Bay Area thrash stuff, Testament and Death Angel, and the heavier the better. And then in college, I really grew to appreciate jazz and funk and Latin music, Afro-Cuban music, blues, things like that, because that's what I was studying there. And so that filtered all that into the mix. And so it's all in my music somewhere. I have all those influences in there somewhere. My favorites, off the top of my head, Aerosmith has been one of my favorite bands for the longest time. Prince, I still miss Prince every day. And I still
I was going to mention that. I noticed that.
Yeah.
You seem to be a fan of Prince. That's what I was going to mention. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of Prince. I miss the guy every day.
What is there about Prince that really appeals to you? What is there you really get excited by him?
The depth of his compositions, the prolificness of his work. I mean, it was just there was so much work just coming out of that guy constantly. That is just amazing. Because songwriting for most people, bit of a struggle. You know, we sit down and we write and we write and we write, and there's a lot of garbage that comes out, and he just would just endlessly put out gems. And so, and do, you know, play all the instruments himself and produce the records, and, you know, he had some help, but, you know, all that kind of stuff. And, it's just endlessly entertaining music, and the catalog is so deep that there's always something new to find in his work. And I saw him play, you know, 4 or 5 times, and it was always one of the best concerts I've ever seen. And so I always just really admired the guy. And then there's people like Butch Walker, who a lot of people don't know, but Butch Walker is one of my all-time favorite songwriters. And he started out in a band called South Gang back in the late 80s, early 90s. They were a hair metal band, and lasted like 2 albums. My girlfriend was a big fan. She had the fan club card back then. And then after that, he started forming these other bands, and now his solo work is just mind-blowingly good. I saw a press quote about him one time that said, "There's only 2 kinds of people in the world, people that love Butch Walker and people that don't know his music yet." And he's that good. He does a lot of production for other artists. He produced the last Green Day album, the last Fall Out Boy album, things. So he does a lot of producing work and songwriting work now. But his own work is just absolutely stunning. And so even when I'm writing comedy music, I will think about, okay, what would Butch Walker do with this song musically that I can then, you know, dump my stupid lyrics all over and make it funny. Because with the comedy music, it's always got to be good music first, and then it's funny on top of it.
Well, it sounds like these people really motivate and inspire you, Prince and Butch Walker. That's what it sounds
like. Oh, yeah. And Aerosmith and Metallica and all the... I love Black Sabbath, yeah, for sure, and all the comic influences, Eddie Izzard and Christopher Titus and Robin Williams and Ralphie May, and, you know, it's just, I just keep dumping more stuff into my head, and I find stuff that I just go, oh, this is so great, whether it's the Afro-Cuban All-Stars or a band I discovered recently called I Don't Know How, But They Found Me. Or I don't know how they found. I can't now. It's something like that. But they're just this really great band, or the Struts, or somebody like that, where I just keep dumping stuff into my head, and eventually it all comes out in my own work somewhere, you know. But if you have enough influences in your head, then it's hard. Nobody ever can really pinpoint the one, you know, the one that you're stealing from.
You have some great people to draw upon. Your motivation, inspiration, your writing, and your performing.
Sure.
And it sounds like you do all your original songs. It sounds like more than covering other people. That's what it sounds like to me.
Yeah, I don't cover stuff that often. I did actually. My last release was a Prince cover, oddly enough, and it was a song. I did a cover of "I Can Never Take the Place of Your Man," which I had recorded back in like 2006. And I released it for a while. The licensing hadn't been done right, and so I pulled it off the market. I probably still owe his estate some money for that, but now I got the licensing done right, and I thought, well, I'm going to put it out now because it was pretty well received when I put it out. So, but I don't do that stuff. A serious cover, that almost never happens in my career now. So that's the oddball, you know. And I don't really do parody, but my next.
Oh yeah, I was going to say that parody. Yeah. I was going to say like Al Yankovic, for example.
Sure. Yeah.
Remember, he used to do songs like "Beat It," you know, "Eat It."
Of course.
All these different funny. What'd you think of someone like that? Yeah.
I grew up listening to Weird Al. Love Weird Al. He's the reason I don't do parody, because nobody does it better than he does. Just the quality of the tracks and the quality of the performances. I can't write parody that good, and so I don't do parody. But I have a parody song coming out in a couple of weeks. It's a parody of the song Hallelujah by Leonard Cohen, because I had read a book about that song called The Holy or the Broken by Alan Light. It's a fascinating story behind that song. And at the end of the book, he said, but there's never been a really good parody of the song that actually parodies the song, that doesn't just change, you know, a lot of parodies are you just change heart to fart, and now you got a parody, and that's also part of why I don't do them. But he said, I've always wanted to hear a song that parodies the song itself and sort of the overuse and the cultural impact of the song. And I was like, challenge accepted, man. And so I dove into it, and I used the song's own lyrics against it to parody the song, using the song's own lyrics. And it was a really interesting challenge, and I think it came out great. The musically, it's more like the Jeff Buckley version, because I listened back to that and found the guitar playing just stunning on it. And so my version is close to that version musically, and people seem to dig it. So that's coming out July 2nd. I think it'll be on all the streaming services.
So what do you think about other comics and people like Don Rickles? I mean, that was the insult expert.
Yeah.
You had so many people like that. Oh yeah, and then you have impressionists like Rich Little, people
Sure.
like that. What do you think about? Have you watched any talk shows at all, like
Oh
Johnny
yeah,
Carson or
sure. Well,
Peter
my
Leno?
mom, my mom loves to tell the story that as a kid, like real young, like 4, 5, 6 years old, people would ask me, "Oh, what's your favorite TV show?" And I would go, "Johnny Carson," and she'd be like, "Shut up! You're not supposed to be up that late." you know. So yeah, I would watch that stuff when I was a kid. I actually watch less of the late night stuff now. I don't. Either because I'm out doing a gig when that stuff is on, or I'm at home, and when I'm at home, I'm in bed by 10:30.
Well, okay.
My girlfriend got me trained to go to bed, and so yeah. But I grew up on all that. I love Don Rickles. I love all those old school guys. Dean Martin, I was always fascinated by.
Oh, yeah.
That kind of stuff. I always loved. Especially the Lewis and Martin stuff, the Smothers Brothers,
Right.
all that kind of stuff. Yeah, it was always very fascinating to me. And when you go back to some of it, some of that stuff doesn't age well, and some of it is absolutely timeless. If you look like the Carol Burnett show stuff, especially the Tim Conway, Harvey Korman stuff. Man, you watch it now, and it is still funny. It's still a scream to watch those guys play off each other. When Tim Conway passed away, I was just like, oh man, that's terrible. Because those were my guys growing up. When I was a kid, it was Harvey Korman and Tim Conway and Carol Burnett, and I loved all that kind of stuff.
Seinfeld is always funny too. Oh yeah.
Yeah, honestly, I've never been a big Seinfeld guy.
Oh.
I admire the craft. I think he's an outstanding writer. And I can see the craft that goes into it, but as a comic, he never really appealed to me that much. I don't like I'm not a big fan of like the super nitpicking on tiny things in life comedy, the observational, because I'm the type of guy that doesn't get annoyed by trivial things generally. And I try not to. And so when the comedy is based on being annoyed at trivial things, it just doesn't appeal to me. But that's completely my personal taste. I like bigger subject comedy. It's like I love Eddie Izzard because he'll do an entire bit in gibberish Latin. About some historical event that took place that he read about. And I love that kind of stuff. And so there's just different tastes in comedy. I can absolutely respect what Seinfeld does, and I can see the craft in it. Just as my taste in comedy, it never really appealed to me that much.
I see. What do you think about some of the other shows? Some of these talent shows like America's Got Talent or American Idol, any of these reality top talent shows they're on, or even The Voice. The Voice.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of them, honestly, because I don't like competitive art. I don't like comedy contests. I do them. I don't like them, but I don't like art that's competitive, especially
why don't you like them? Okay, why don't you like some of these comedy competitions?
Well, because it's every time if you walk into the green room at a comedy competition, it is a bunch of comics that like each other's work, respect each other's work, and now have to go out and try and beat each other's work, and we really all just want to do a show together and have a great show. That's all we want. The voting and comedy competitions are great to bring people in because the audience goes, oh, we get to vote and all this kind of stuff, but really we just want to have a fun show together, and unfortunately we have to think about winning because the prize is getting booked on the road or money or whatever it is, So I've done them. I've done the San Francisco Comedy Competition. I've done the World Series of Comedy a bunch of times. But we would rather just do a show together, And I think art as a competition is always a little bit weird. I've never even liked, when you go to a county fair and there's a competition for paintings. It's like, just let people paint. Just let them paint. That one's good and that one's good. Why you got to give it a blue ribbon? Who cares, And so the competition part of it is always sort of, I think, forced on art. More so than anything. And the art can just exist as itself. And I know comics and musicians and painters and photographers that would never win a competition. I've never won a comedy competition, but it's just not my forum. I'm a much better comic in 45 minutes or an hour than I am in 7 minutes. and so the competition format doesn't really suit what I do. But that doesn't mean it's not good, you know. So the competition thing is just it's annoying to me, especially when you're with something like America's Got Talent, where you're pitting singers against comics, against jugglers, against dancers. It's apples and oranges. You can't even compete?
Well,
you know why?
I feel like America's Got Talent. They're looking for the stories. What they're looking for, something to get the ratings up, of course, and then you got to get the attention. Then they do discover talent, that's for sure. But the person's got to be phenomenal. They can let them go at any time. They sign an agreement. They have to sign their agreement, and be a yo-yo and go up against all the competition. Some people make it big, other people don't.
Right.
Some you don't hear about anymore.
Yeah, and I've got friends that have been on America's Got Talent and Last Comic Standing and all that kind of stuff. I have to watch America's Got Talent this week because I have two friends on the show this Tuesday, and so I have to watch and see how they do. But I mean, people tell me I really should do America's Got Talent. I know the talent booker, and but it's just like, I've talked so much smack about these shows over the years. I feel hypocritical actually going on one.
Well, just because a person doesn't get a call back from them doesn't mean they don't have talent. I tried 5.5 hours past the convention center, and that was it. I had a backup song. They wouldn't let me do it. They said, if you make the next round, the CD, you can use it. And I never heard from them. I mean, it's not interesting, but I never heard from them again. Okay, that's okay.
Yeah.
So now I'm hosting my own talk show on Zoom. It turned out that the pandemic, I had never heard of Zoom before, but because of the pandemic, we were going to do it in person, my producer and I, and this works out actually better. So we had a little glitch, but we overcame it. And I'm really glad that we did, and I'm really, I'm happy that's working out. And I'm able to talk to you.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, I mean, I don't think most people didn't know what Zoom was before we all got locked down. I mean, I had heard of it, but I not only did I start doing shows on Zoom, I was doing music lessons on Zoom, all sorts of stuff. Zoom and Skype, and there's all these, Facebook Live and Instagram Live, and all this stuff. And now I do a stream show every Tuesday at 12:30 West Coast time that goes out to Facebook and Instagram and Twitch and YouTube, and it's just me for an hour playing songs and jibber jabbering, and so I've been doing that for I don't know, 2 months now or something like that, and it's fun. It's a way for me to just kind of keep contact with everybody that I don't get, because it was fun being able to play for people that I wouldn't normally get to play for. Or, I've got a few fans in this town, but it's not enough to book a gig there. Or this person they live in a town where there's no venues available, so they're never going to get a comedy show. Right. This way, they're going to get a comedy show. We got a lot of new people into stand-up comedy over the last year and a half just through these online shows.
Well, that's great. So you're reaching out to quite a few people. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
For us, we're on. We get you out on Facebook. We get you out on YouTube.
Yeah.
all the guests on my show get something that no other show does. We give them a complimentary DVD of their appearance and performance on the show. So when you're done, you'll give me your address, and my producer will go ahead and send that to you.
Sure. Yeah, sounds like a plan, man.
Yeah. So like I say, very interesting. I will say it's hard to say which. Stanley, you love comedy and you love music. You love both of them. I guess you have a love that you love to combine both of them. And I don't know which one you prefer, comedy or music, or you like them equally, I guess.
I go back and forth. There have been times over the last 16 years where I hate comedy. And every comic goes through this. There's sort of a 7-year itch in comedy where I saw the generation ahead of me in the comedy scene here go through it when they hit their 7 years, and they were just like, man, I hate this. Why am I doing this to myself? And then you get past it by about 8.5 years in, you're back into it. And so I knew that was coming. When I hit that 7 years, I was just like, oh, I hate this, but I know what this is, and I just have to persist through it. There's times when I didn't like music that much, and you come back around to it. I can't imagine not doing it. I can't imagine going to work and getting a regular job ever again. That's not going to happen. I was never a good employee.
Do you have any? I want to ask you, do you have any other hobbies besides music and comedy? Do you have any other hobbies or anything else? Any other jobs that you did before you got into all this? Oh
yeah. No, I had jobs. I mean, my first job was actually working in a music school as a clerk. But I worked in a warehouse at a Montgomery Ward's for a couple years. I did resets at grocery stores for a couple years. I sold internet porn for a bunch of years back in the early Wild West days of internet porn, and man, made a lot of money on it that you can't make now in that segment of the internet. But yeah, I was never good at being an employee. I was the guy that would, I'm not working overtime because if you're not going to pay me for it, I'm not going to be here. I always did the bare minimum. I was a great employee, but I was never a happy employee. That was the big difference. I would always get the job done, but I never liked being there. And so when I started teaching music back in, 94, 95, something like that, that was it. Now I teach music and I perform and I license my music and I do voiceover work and, I get residual royalties and things like that. And it's so much more interesting to be able to get up every day and know that I've got something different to accomplish. It might be, I'm traveling, or I have to sit down and write today, or I got to do interviews, or, every day is a little bit different, and that makes it way more exciting than going and plugging away in a warehouse somewhere, or God forbid having a cubicle and a necktie. I would go nuts.
You're never bored. You're a happy camper. You're able to do what you want to do, and you can change it up, and you make good money apparently, and you also love what you're doing. There's a combination of passion and money combined, doing what you want to do. Not what somebody else is wanting you to do.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
If you had to do it over again, would you do anything differently at all in your career?
Oh, I mean, if I look back at it, I probably would have told myself to start doing comedy earlier than 32 years old. But who knew? I mean, it was a surprise. I had no idea I would be doing that. And there's probably things that I would maybe do different. I don't know. But anything that seemed like it should have been done differently probably would have compromised my artistic vision a little more than I wanted to. My girlfriend always used to go, "Can't you just write a regular love song?" And I've written regular love songs. They don't pay the bills. That's not what people want to hear from me, And my favorite song that I've ever written is a happy little love song called "Kissing in the Rain," but nobody ever listens to it. And so I don't think any of the changes that I might have, looking back, where I go, I could have signed with a major label or whatever it was, opportunities that I didn't take advantage of. I don't know that it would have worked out any differently. It probably would have compromised the artistic vision more than I wanted to, which leads to an unfulfilling creative life. And so I would rather do the kind of art that I think is cool and the kind of art that I want to see in the world, and make my way doing that. I'm not loaded wealthy, but I have enough, money to be able to survive in the San Francisco Bay Area, and that's a goal in itself for a lot of people. I don't have to move out of, to Vegas or Texas or something where it's cheaper.
So you have no regrets. It sounds like you have no regrets. It sounds like you might not even do anything differently then.
No, I mean, if I try to it's lifestyle design is really what it is. I'm way more concerned about lifestyle design than anything. There's parts of it I hate. I hate sitting down and trying to book gigs. Hustling for gigs is my least favorite part of this job. But for the most part, I have a life that I enjoy, that I've got control over my time with. I can get up in the morning and spend 3-4 hours writing and goofing around and recording and doing really fun creative stuff, and I do the business in the afternoon, and then late afternoon I teach, and then I go do gigs at night, and I get to travel. It's great. It's a little bit different every day, and so I try to design my life so that if I died tomorrow, I would not go, man, I wish I'd have done that. Right. I want to have done that, and there's still plenty of things that I would like to do, but I don't want to. Like I said, if I died tomorrow, I would not look back on my life and go, "Man, I shouldn't have done that."
So the benefits far outweigh any negatives. What you're saying. You don't want to say, "I want to happy and do all those things and I never did it." You want to go for your dreams, take your vacations, go for them. Live each day as if your last, and what your last going to come about. That way, when it's over, as we know, there's no do-overs and there's no encores. You can say you did it your way and you went out with a smile. Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
You definitely have a very versatile, talented, and interesting and rewarding life that you do, Phil Johnson.
I try.
Do you have any advice for anybody, any aspiring comedians, songwriters, people want to make entertainment. Any advice for them dealing with rejection and trying to make it in this business? And it's not easy.
No, and you deal with rejection on a daily basis. Like every day somebody is rejecting you, whether that is, no, I'm not going to book you for this gig, or it's a passive rejection where you go, why aren't more people listening to this song? You know, why did 50 people click through this link and only 25 of them listen to the song? What's going on there? So, I mean, there's some level of rejection every single day in this business. And so you learn how to deal with it. You can't dwell on it. And there's been times where I dwelled on it and I'm punching my desk in the afternoon going, come on. But if you dwell on it, it's just going to be a black cloud over your head the entire time. And so it really you just have to go, all right, that didn't work, on to the next thing, whatever it is, and just keep refining it. But I mean, when you live with rejection on a daily basis like that, you start to grow a pretty thick skin, whether that could be an audience just not giving you any response to, there was a show years ago where I did 45 minutes on stage, and the only response I got from the audience was one girl almost choked on a French fry and kind of went, that was it, And so you just go, okay, well, I'm never going to see these people again, on to the next show, And I'm always just looking for the people that like what I do. That's it. And some comics, they go, man, you've got to be able to kill for any audience in any venue, in anywhere, at any time. And I'm like, no. Why? I mean, like, if a crowd hated Nirvana, they didn't start playing Beach Boys covers. They just did Nirvana, and that's what I do. I'm looking for the people that like what Phil Johnson does, and the people that don't, great. It's not for them. That's fine. Well,
as Ricky Nelson said in the Garden Party, if you can't please everybody, please yourself. You're not going
exactly.
You're never going to please everybody. That's for sure. Different skills for different folks. One person's treasure, someone else's trash.
That's right. Oh man, Ricky Nelson was an important person in my house growing up. Yeah, my dad and he were acquaintances and relative friends, and so yeah, Rick Nelson was a highly thought of person in my house. Especially Garden Party's a great song. Years ago, I did a reggae version of Hello Mary Lou, and I can't find the recording of it, or I'd put it out.
What did you think of the King? Did you think of Elvis? Hanging there.
Oh yeah. Sure, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I grew up on that stuff, so Elvis is a pretty fascinating figure. I mean, he still pops up in my shuffle, when I'm listening to music, and my girlfriend goes, "Why are you listening to this old stuff?" And I dig it. I mean, the '68 comeback special is one of the greatest live performances of all time.
I agree with you. Oh yeah, the '68 comeback at ABC. I wish I had the right contact to have been there. Elvis was in his black leather jacket and pants. He was surrounded by his cronies, DJ Fontana on drums, and Scotty Moore on the lead guitar. And they were in a circle, and they were reminiscing about the early days when it first started. But I had, unfortunately, again, I didn't have the money and means that the concerts were sold out, so I never got a chance to meet my inspiration, Elvis. But I did have the honor and privilege of working with a producer on a television show. It was all on. And he went ahead and he said, we know what you can do, when someone said it couldn't be done. First time on TV, singing All Shook, doing All Shook Up.
Okay.
I said, you're wrong, I'm going to win. I won. And then they called me back, and I was on about 10 times. I had a couple of television specials. This guy, the guy that is a co-producer of The Gong Show, Chris Beard.
Okay.
Chris Beard wrote the '68 comeback comedy, him and his partner, Alan Bly.
Okay.
They wrote the comedy for that. So. And then when they called, besides the first time, he says, we know what you could do. When they did call me back from the new show, his staff was very rude. I got mad. I said, if you don't like what I'm doing, I'm out of here. Called me back to my house. Never forget. Panorama said, he said, Johnny, you can do Teddy Bear. You can do whatever you want. He let me take over the show, control everything. I had no idea special effects. And as Elvis had his Hawaii special in '73, all over the world, that was watched by millions of people. I had my Hawaii special, and it was like Elvis and the Beatles. I felt like Elvis doing it. He was singing Blue Suede Shoes, hugging, kissing, screaming, lips in the face, cheering, and applauding. Once in a lifetime. Oh, yeah, once in a lifetime, something like that. Those performances can be seen. If you go to my website, go to johnnyblaze.com. You can see that. And if you'd like to check out my documentary on Amazon, it's called Gong, G-O-N-G, but not forgotten. The original Johnny Blaze story. Former Gong Show winner, which I am, Elvis impersonator, which I am, strives to host his own late-night talk show, which I'm currently doing. And my co-star played Mr. Belding, the principal, in Saved by the Bell, Dennis Haskins.
Oh, nice.
True Don Blue, who's the host of the Gong Show, is in there, and Joey Carbo, the musical conductor. So that's you can check that out sometime.
Fun.
Like the movie, give me a nice review on Amazon. All right. But anyway, I want to say you're very delightful, and I'm really glad that you're my guest. I've enjoyed it.
Thank you.
What I want to ask you is, do you have any? Okay, what I was going to say was, your present. What are your present gigs and any future dream projects that you have coming up?
Oh, sure. Yeah. I mean, so doing a lot of promotion for my latest comedy special, Burning Sensation. It's my 4th comedy special. And so PhilJohnsonComedy.com is where you can get that, stream, download discs, all that kind of stuff. And right now, just getting back into live performances, mostly doing a lot of local stuff here in California because the booking situation is a mess right now. All the big venues are still closed, so all the really famous people are playing the smaller venues. It's a mess. But I will be going on the road later this summer. I've got some dates in Illinois and Missouri and things like that. All the tour dates are on PhilJohnsonComedy.com as well. And so right now I'm really just developing this new show, which will eventually turn into my 5th special. At the rate it's going, we might film it next year. It's moving much much faster than the last one. And I release new music every 6 weeks to feed the Spotify monster. So July 2nd, July 2nd is the Hallelujah parody coming out, and then in August I have a single coming out called A Puggle Named Fred. And I have the last album that I put out is called the Itty Bitty Ditty Committee. It's 33 songs in 18 minutes. They're all very short.
Well, that's Phil Johnson. That's blazing and amazing. That's great. How can people they want to find out more about you? Tell me, how people can locate you on social media and different options. Tell me the different places they can go to if they want to find out more about you.
Sure. The headquarters is PhilJohnsonComedy.com. Everything is linked right there. Even if you just Google Phil Johnson Comedy, I will come up. Do not just Google Phil Johnson, because the other guy that comes up is an evangelical religious philosopher. And to his people, not like me. But Phil Johnson Comedy on most of the places, Facebook and Instagram and TikTok. No, TikTok is at Roadside Phil on TikTok, and Twitter and Venmo if you want to send me some money. But yeah, PhilJohnsonComedy.com is the place to go for all the stuff.
That's really great. Everybody, that's very complete. Well,
I try.
It sounds like it. No, you're very interesting. Like I say, you're multi-talented. Your stories are entertaining. I've enjoyed every minute of it. So I'm
glad to hear it.
Even though we got off on the wrong foot because of technical, we overcame it.
It happens. It happens. Technology hates us all.
It happens sometimes. Yep. Well, quitters never win. Winners never quit.
That's right.
That's right. Success is just getting up to the plate and giving it a swing again. There you go.
Yep. Show up or you don't get it. That's right.
All right. Well, just keep going, being amazing and blazing, Phil Johnson.
All right.
And I want to thank you very much for being my guest, the amazing, blazing musician and comedian, Phil Johnson. And until next time, for all my fans and friends, always keep a smile on your face and a song in your heart. Happy trails and blaze out.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you would like to be a guest on a Zoom entertainment talk show, please send us an email, amazingoriginaljbshow@gmail.com. All of our guests will receive a complimentary DVD of their appearance on the show. And now, ladies and gentlemen, the amazing original Johnny Blaze has just left the building. Good night. God bless you.